Hi, everyone, and welcome to our webcast today, Ask Dice How to Find Tech Talent with Limited Resources. It's great to be here, and I look forward to spending the next 30 minutes with you. My name is Tim, and I am the Senior Director of Dice's Sourcing Services team and product. I've been in the technical recruitment space for over 16 years and have been with Dice for over 3 years. In my career, I've worked with thousands of clients across the globe on both their small scale and large scale hiring needs. And I'm excited to share some of my views and experiences with you today. We do have a broad and diverse audience today, so I will do my best to address today's topics so they are both impactful and meaningful to all. But before we get started, let's review a few housekeeping items. First, the webinar recording will be provided via email within the next 2 days. Please submit any questions through the webinar using the questions dropdown on your webinar control panel. For those questions I cannot answer due to time constraints today, I will follow up directly with the person who asked it. And lastly, we appreciate any of your feedback. So please complete the short survey you'll receive via email after the webinar is finished today. So we have a lot to talk about today, including 2023 tech trends, tech recruiting best practices, the pros and cons of outsourcing versus recruiting in-house, and we'd like to dedicate a good amount of time to answering your questions at the end. So please submit them through the questions dropdown on your webinar control panel. So I'd like to start off today by taking a look at the overall tech market and lend some perspective to what seems to be happening in the marketplace, as this is likely on everyone's mind right now. The headline here is that the tech unemployment rate continues to be significantly lower than the overall national rate, which may or may not come as a shock to some. We've all heard stories lately of large-scale layoffs, especially in the tech space. It seems you can't read a news article or look at your LinkedIn feed without seeing news of some big-name tech firm going through downsizing. However, the January employment numbers told a much different story. Last month, over 517,000 jobs were added to the economy, and the unemployment rate dipped to a 53-year low to 3.4%. Specifically in tech, the unemployment rate dropped to just 1.5% and continues to be significantly lower than the overall rate. So what's really going on here? In my view, first, as far as the overall economy goes, the traditional economic markers of a recession technically have not happened yet. So the latest GDP report shows that the US economy grew faster than expected at the end of last year. The unemployment rate remains at a historically low 3.4%. Mortgage rates have started to come down a bit. Inflation seems to be cooling off, and wage growth is up from last year. Secondly, I think there are 3 characteristics in play here which help explain those employers who have laid off staff in recent months. The first is many are in the technology space. The second thing is many tech firms hired aggressively over the past 18 months, with headcount growing an average of 41%. And many tech firms have seen even more sizable declines in their stock prices, which have fallen an average of 43% from their peaks. So it's these characteristics which suggest to me that the companies conducting layoffs are not representative of the broader job market, and that many of the recent layoff announcements do not necessarily signal a weaker demand for tech talent. I also believe that the historically low unemployment rate suggests that those impacted by layoffs at tech firms were not necessarily all technologists. Many were in sales, finance, business ops related roles, recruiters, and in HR, just to name some. And that those technologists who were impacted by downsizing were quickly rehired into the job market. So let's move on to some tech occupation trends. Tech occupation employment across all sectors was significantly higher in 2022 and is remaining fairly steady. Over the past 2 years, the US economy has added over 600,000 new tech jobs. And while the pace has slowed slightly in the past few months, the overall trend tells a story that demand for tech talent continues to grow at a very quick pace. In fact, the long-range hiring picture over the next 7 years shows that tech employment will grow an additional 33% from 2023 into 2030. There really are no signs of the tech labor market cooling off anytime soon. And while there certainly are headline-making layoffs happening today, they seem to be a much smaller part of the overall tech hiring story. So what does this all mean? As a recruiter, you're likely being asked to do more with less, from shrinking teams to declining budgets and resources. How do you find tech talent when your resources are cut? So I think tech recruiters can best produce results by adopting a diverse plan of attack, which includes, first off, developing an attractive employer brand. So employers should promote their brand and culture to attract the right talent. 90% of tech professionals believe an employer's brand is critical in their decision of where they will work. And in fact, 86% of job seekers research reviews and ratings of employers before they apply. And 50% of job seekers say that it would not work for an employer with a bad brand, even if that meant a pay raise. The second tip is offering competitive compensation. Recruiters should be aware of market rates and offer top competitive pay, benefits, and other incentives to help attract top talent. Keep in mind, pay is a top factor a job prospect considers when both applying for jobs and accepting job offers. In Dice's recently released tech salary report, tech professionals reported being more dissatisfied with their compensation in 2022 than they were in 2021, with 49% believing they are underpaid today. So pay is definitely top of mind in the tech space today. The third tip, providing a positive candidate experience. A positive candidate experience can help build strong relationships with hires and increase the chance of them accepting a job offer. Providing a positive candidate experience starts with the job posting itself by providing an accurate, complete description of the role to the application. You need to make sure it's easy to submit an application for your jobs. And I would actually suggest that every employer try to apply to one of their own jobs to see what that experience is really like. All the way to the interviews, the offer stage, and the onboarding stage. A positive experience will certainly pay off in your ability to attract and convert top tech talent. The fourth tip is engage passive talent. Building relationships with candidates through networking, referrals, and social media can help recruiters identify and attract top talent. With the tech unemployment rate at only 1.5%, employers can't afford to overlook a robust passive recruitment plan. And a good passive recruitment strategy does include sourcing across multiple channels, building relationships, and really a good deal of stick-to-itness. You're going to have to put forth the effort to proactively call and follow up to get top tech talent on the phone. And lastly, utilizing technology tools. So for example, an applicant tracking system, social media, leveraging the full capabilities of various job boards, using labor market data tools, video screening tools, and other recruitment technology tools can help streamline the process and reach a larger pool of talent with less effort. Technology is here to help recruiters find talent faster, to structure their work, to automate a number of administrative tasks as well. And if done correctly, these items add up to considerable time savings at scale. So when it comes to recruiting, you do have options. Let's dive into the pros and cons of in-house recruiting versus outsourcing, and when you might want to choose one over the other. So let's start with in-house. There are a number of pros and cons. For example, cost. Many outsourcing firms charge anywhere between 15 to 30% fee as a percentage of the candidate's first year comp. And with the average tech salary in 2022 rising to just over $111,000, that translates to roughly a $16,000 to $33,000 fee per hire. You will have greater control over the processes that you have in place. And obviously, you're going to have a better grasp on your own culture, values, and goals than anyone who's not employed with you would. Some of the cons, it does take time, right? Managing the recruitment process yourself can take up a ton of time. We're finding that to recruit top passive tech talent, it takes a multi-pronged approach and could require 8 to 10 touches. That's emails, that's text messages, that's voicemails and phone calls before that candidate actually responds back to you. So when you extrapolate that over dozens of candidates per job per day, you can see how much time that can actually take up. Potentially an in-house recruiter, their network is going to be a little bit more limited, and you may or may not have the in-house expertise in the tech space to effectively recruit top tech talent. So when should you consider keeping recruiting in-house? I think the first tip is if you have already a strong internal recruitment team. If your internal recruitment team has the tools and technologies necessary to do their work, if your employer brand is strong and attractive to job seekers, if you have good access to tech talent through whatever resources that you use, and if you typically meet your recruiting goals and SLAs, such as time to hire and job fill rate, you may want to think about keeping recruitment in-house. And now that we've covered in-house recruiting, let's also briefly talk about the pros and cons of outsourcing to staffing firms and to RPOs, and when you may want to outsource. Some of the pros include access to specialized expertise. Obviously, recruitment firms have specialized knowledge when it comes to recruiting, sourcing, screening, and everything necessary to engage with and to recruit top tech talent. To time savings, to an increased pool of talent as well. Some of the cons, of course, would be cost. We talked a little bit about that. Lack of internal knowledge of your culture, values, and goals. And you do lose some control over the recruitment processes that you built and have in place. So when would I recommend an employer considering outsourcing their jobs? I think the first key marker would be if your internal bandwidth is tight. You don't have necessarily the time or the energy or the manpower to put forth the effort needed. If you have limited access to tech talent, if your internal tools and technologies are not up to par, if you lack in-house tech expertise, or lastly, if the efforts that you put forth simply have not produced the results that you wanted. Those are some key factors that I would look at when making the decision to outsource. And so to help employers that have limited resources, DICE created the sourcing services product to help with these specific challenges. This service was born to specifically address the main challenges employers have when recruiting tech talent, the sourcing and the screening. Our experienced recruiting team is dedicated to engaging technologists, reviewing their skills, and providing phone screenings. We locate top tech talent in a cost-effective way and deliver the results you need to help put time back in your day. The sourcing services team acts as an extension of our client's team, and our team of in-house recruiters have, on average, 16 years of tech recruiting experience. So you can feel confident that you'll have a world-class recruiter working alongside you who understands both the tech landscape as well as the tactics necessary to recruit top tech talent. So if you'd like to learn more, please contact your Dice sales rep or myself, and we would be happy to connect with you to learn more about what hiring challenges you have and to see how sourcing services can help you find top tech talent. And with that, let's move on to the Q&A portion. We've had a number of questions come in, and I will answer as many as I can with the time we have left. The first question, as a small employer, how can I make my jobs as attractive as possible? I think there's a few areas you might want to look at. I always look at things like a complete and compelling job description. That's kind of where things start, right? I think you're going to want to be very clear and succinct as you describe the role, the responsibilities, and also don't be shy to list what benefits you offer, which is what's in it for the job seeker as well. We have recently seen job ads which do list pay ranges significantly outperform those that don't. I know some employers are hesitant to list pay in their job ads. So if this was you, or if this is you, I would focus on other benefits which may be attractive to potential job seekers. And lastly, a lot of technologists actually prefer to work in an environment that is on the smaller side. So don't feel as if you're automatically less attractive as an employer just because you're smaller. Just do your best to highlight the benefits of your work, and I think you'll do just fine. The next question, my execs are strongly against posting compensation information in the job description or the job posting. How do I craft a job listing that is still enticing to candidates while making it clear that a salary discussion will take place later based on their experience? I personally like to ask candidates up front what their salary expectations are, just to gauge whether or not we are aligned from the start before we get too far along. And if that alignment is there, then you can move forward and let them know that the exact compensation details will be shared at a later date and will be commensurate with their skills and experiences. But listing competitive pay commensurate with experience in the job ad is fine if you are limited on what you can actually post in the job description. Otherwise, I think you need to look holistically about what you can offer. Yes, pay will always play a role, but many technologists value a number of things such as flexible work, new and exciting technologies, and culture, just to name 3. Everyone is different and can place different value on different aspects of what you can offer. So just make sure you do your best to highlight some of these things in your job ads, and you should do well. The next question, what is the best type of message to send a potential candidate that does not apply for a posted job? I think this question is referring to sending cold messages to passive talent. I typically coach my team by telling them this story. Early in my career, there was a candidate that I tried to recruit over and over and over for weeks, and I didn't have much luck. So after a period of time, I tweaked what I was saying on each voicemail, and the candidate finally called back. So I was very excited about that. And at the end of our call, I asked him, why did you call me back this time? And what he told me really stuck with me, and I think it is true today, just as it was back in 2006 when I actually made this call. He told me, I get 40 calls from recruiters every week. There is no way I have time to listen to every voicemail, let alone call all of them back. But your voicemail message was clear. It showed you did research on my background, and you were able to connect my work and my experience to the job that you were calling me about. And then lastly, you enticed me by speaking about what was in it for me. And so I think as a recruiter, when sending cold emails or texts or even making cold calls, you're basically in sales at this point. Your message is like one of those YouTube ads, and your goal is to make sure they don't hit that skip button, right? And so what does an effective email or text or voice message look like? I always start off by letting them know who I am and where I work. I then tell them why I'm reaching out to them, and then talk a little bit about or key on the fact that you've reviewed their profile, you've done your homework, and you feel that your job that you're calling about is a great fit because of X, Y, or Z. Try to connect the dots of their background to the jobs that you're working on, and then give some points to help sell them on it, whether it's the employer that I'm working with has great pay, they have a flexible work schedule, there's the potential for career growth, and here's what it looks like, benefits look like X, Y, or Z, whatever that is for you. This is the candidate's what's in it for me, and it's an important part of this, right? And then I usually close it up with a clear and specific call to action. I generally, on the first call, ask for just 15 minutes of their time over the phone, and I usually give them a specific time frame. It's usually tomorrow at these times or within the next 24 hours. And the spirit is to determine whether or not that job indeed is a good fit. You can always set up time later or extend the call if you find out that that job truly is a good fit. But by giving them a short initial call time frame and a date, it increases the odds they'll actually carve out time to speak with you. And then lastly, provide them with some times that you can speak, set up a phone call, and I send a calendar invite out as well, just to make sure no one misses it, they forgot about it. This helps increase the odds that they're going to show up to that call. So hopefully that helped. The next question, excuse me, what has been identified as the #1 reason tech talent leaves one employer for another? I don't know if there's one, top reason. In my experience, the top reason why tech talent leaves comes down to the satisfaction that they have across the board. And inside of job satisfaction, you're going to think about things like pay, flexible work, whether that's remote, a hybrid, a flexible schedule if you're on site, maybe come in a little bit later, work a little bit later, or vice versa, come in early, leave a little bit early, excuse me. And so I think those things do play a pretty big role. Other factors that can play a role in tech talent leaving include if the company's culture isn't all that great, if the work environment is toxic, or potentially that the work is not meaningful. So I think it's important to understand the needs and the motivations that are here and have a well-defined employee engagement strategy in place. And with that, I will turn it back over to see if there's any questions that have been submitted through the web chat. Okay, we have a couple here. Please provide your observations on best practices to attract tech talent so I can share with my decision makers. Well, I think we talked about many steps here. There really isn't one magic bullet. If you do this, you're going to attract top tech talent. in my view, understanding what motivates and drives technologists is key to the strategy in which you need to put place to attract them. Again, think about that person I tried to recruit. They're getting 40 calls a week. You need to have your message rise up to the top. And it's understanding the motivations and what drives them that will get you either a call back, or you're going to spin your wheels making cold calls the entire day and you're active but not productive, right? So I would think that maybe that's the best practice there. The next question, what is your fee percentage for DICE recruiting? So that's the sourcing team that we had talked about. We don't have a pay per hire model. We have a project-based fee model, which typically is about 1/3 the cost of what a traditional staffing firm would charge. Something that's a little different about what we do is we do a lot of market research in advance, and we provide a scope of work back to every single client so they know exactly what they're going to get before they actually sign up with us. And we have a very strong track record. Over 95% of the thousands of projects we've completed in the last 3 years have met or exceeded the submittal volume expectation in place. You can make unlimited hires at no charge, so it's a one-time upfront fee. Any recommendations on how to get more applicants to my jobs? Well, I think it starts off by making sure that the job description is accurate, complete. It tells a compelling story about what it is actually you're looking to hire for. And then again, what's in it for them, right? You might not be able to list everything, but talking a little bit about, you know, as a tech person, I've got a lot of options. So I can go into DICE and I can see thousands of job ads. What is it about this job ad that's causing me to stop, read further, and trying to connect those dots as to this is actually better for me? So that's one way. You can send an email out to help raise more awareness of that job. So that's some of the tactics that my team will use. If people aren't actively searching, we'll go and search them out and direct them back to the job posting. This is a big one. How can I attract remote talent back into the office? Yeah, there's been a lot that's changed there in the last 2 years or so. You know, I think that technologists get it. I think a lot of workers get it, that some employers are going to ask them to come back into the office. So I would just be transparent up front. People want to know why. They want to know, you know, is there a reason why I was remote and now you're asking me back into the office? You know, what does this mean? I would give them a transition period as well. Many people have lives outside of work. They have kids, they have daycare and those types of things. And they might need to make some changes to what they're doing in their home life, right? So giving them time to actually adjust to that and explaining those reasons why should help you convince people to come back into the office. And then lastly, how can we obtain market research on current tech roles? I think there's a lot of market research out there. For example, DICE just released its tech salary report for 2023. There's a lot of great details in there. You can find a copy of that on both DICE. We posted it on LinkedIn. The BLS has a lot of good data. I personally, and these are free, of course. There's a site called CompTIA that we use. That's free of charge and gives a lot of insights into, you know, what's happening with tech today. There's also paid resources that myself and my team use. Lightcast happens to be one of those. So I think it's a blend of various sites, but I would start with DICE. The reporting that DICE puts out seems to be really strong and certainly informs me on what's happening in the overall tech space. And we are at the bottom of the hour, so I would like to thank you for your time today. As a reminder, the webinar recording will be provided via email in the next 2 days. We'll also make sure that we answer all the questions that we did not get to today, and we appreciate your feedback. Please don't forget to complete the short survey you'll receive via email after the webinar is finished. And thank you again, and take care. Bye-bye.